Awesome. Thank you, Chris. That was going to be my next thought. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Rumiano. I'm a strategic advisor on the project for the CSUBUY P2P acceleration. I want to let you know that today, what Brian's going to walk us through is a high-level functionality overview of actions that you will take as a compliance approver. Your campus project team has sent information and more detailed campus-specific trainings, which will start after go live. Our go live is Monday, 1/26/26. So make sure that you have those trainings on your calendar. And if you do not, please reach out to your local campus project team. For this webinar, the chat feature is closed, but the Q&A will remain open. And we'll do our very best to get through as many questions as possible. Just want to make sure that you know there's like 3 of us and a whole bunch of you guys. So give us a chance. We'll try and get to them as quickly as possible. The session is being recorded, and both the recording and the PowerPoint presentation will be shared with your campus project team for dissemination. At the end of the session, we'll share who those people for your campus are, your campus contacts. And should you have any follow-up questions related to your specific configuration for your campus or training or questions, please reach out to them. And I think that's all I've got for the housekeeping. And I'm going to send it over to Brian Greshko. He is with our implementation partner for the P2P acceleration, Rise Now. And he's going to take us through our training today. Brian, take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. I hope everyone's week is going well. As Sarah said, I'm going to be working you guys through. Let me share my screen. Is the PowerPoint up? Okay, perfect. Day in the life of approvers. So, why are we all here today? We want to talk about um, what the steps are for approving an order. The folks on this call will all play an important role in saying, basically approving requisitions, saying it's okay to order this good. So after this training session, you will understand your approval responsibilities in CSUBUY, know what to review before approving, and how to navigate the system to keep purchasing and payments moving smoothly. We have 2 modules that we're going to cover. Module 1 will be a system introduction, and then Module 2 will actually review requisition review and approval. Our training structure will be, I will review some content with you, I'll do some demos, and at the end, over the course of the training, we'll have Q&A open. I believe we'll have some time at the end, so I'm also planning on running through some kind of start to finish examples, but we'll see how we do on time. So Module 1, our system introduction, we're going to talk about the relationship between CFS and CSUBUY. I'll do an overview of CSUBUY. We'll talk about basic navigation, notifications, and searching. Okay, CFS and CSUBUY. We want to cover the relationship between the two. So integrations, which is a term that we use to describe data passing between the 2 applications, CFS and CSUBUY, and we'll learn what happens in which system. So here, just an overview of all the times that the 2 applications are passing data between one another. The top is CSUBUY and the bottom is CFS. So as you can see, the 2 do talk to each other over the course of an entire order. It's vendor master, shopping, requisition, receiving, invoicing, and matching. During all of those stages, the 2 systems pass information back and forth. What to do where? So in CSUBUY, that's where we would do our buying, receiving, supplier direct pays, supplier payments, and reconciliation. And CFS is where we're doing our budget checking, student employee direct pays, payment, claims, and 1099. So just an overview here of what's happening where. Okay. So when we're talking about CSU BUY, what we really want to learn is what's the purpose of the system? What is our role in the system? Logging in and locating system help and resources. So that we'll cover more towards the end, I believe. So CSU BUY is the implementation of strategic standardized procurement processes that allows for the elimination of manual touch points and steps, resulting in efficiencies through automation, risk mitigation, and cost savings for the California State University. In simple terms, we aim to make things easier, more efficient, and standardized. And you folks will play a key role in that as compliance approvers. So who uses CSU BUY? This is an outline of all the different types of users that we have. Shoppers and requesters are users who are placing orders saying we need this goods or service. Approvers are playing a role at some point in that review process of saying it is okay for this order to proceed. Different approvers in different stages might be looking at different things. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Procurement, they also review and approve requisitions, and then accounts payable process invoices and payments. But for the folks on this call as appliance approvers, you are in the middle. You are playing that role of approving the order. Okay, so basic navigation. What we want to cover here is locating your user profile, updating your system notification settings. We'll talk about key features of the notification center, as well as navigation of the shopping dashboard. So this is the shopping homepage. Number one is called the flyout. This is the navigational directory for the entire application. Different roles grant access to different areas of the app, so not everyone's flyout will look the same, but that's the main navigational area, and I'll show you how that works. Number two is the organization message. So this area is populated by your campus with information that is relevant for you. It might be times for training sessions, it might be general guidelines, just maybe a welcome, but that is maintained by the campus. Number three, general announcements. This is maintained by the system as a whole. So it might talk about system outages, it might talk about upcoming updates or enhancements that we're working on. But again, that is maintained at the system level. Number four is one of the different search engines, and I'll talk about the search in a little bit, but this one's more of a global search where you can get to different areas of the app easily. Number five, quick links. These are links to the most commonly used areas of the app. So any of those links will take you to areas that the flat would also take you to. And then number six, we have in-app notifications listed in the upper right-hand corner, letting you know that there's some kind of action item or alert for you as a user. In order to access our profile, there is a little person in the upper right-hand corner. Clicking that takes us into our profile. Most of the profile is locked, meaning it can't be edited by the user. That information comes over from CFS. So if maybe you have a name change or there's an issue with your email, you would need to work with your campus security to get that corrected because they put that into CFS and then it comes over from CFS into CSU BUY. An area of your profile that you can edit and make changes to would be your notification preferences. So there is a tab on the left where you can get to notification preferences. So this section here, and each one of these subtabs represents a different area of the app that you might want to change your notification. There's two types of notifications, email or an in-app alert. And you would want to change your preference to whatever makes the most sense for you. So if you're someone that's in the system all the time, maybe you don't want tons of emails. If you're someone that is not in the system that often, maybe the email makes more sense to prompt you to go into the system. Um, and I'll show you guys how to manipulate those shortly. Our recommendations are leave the defaults on at first for notifications. We have put some time and effort into making sure that the notification preferences make sense based off the user roles. Um, the recommendation is don't touch that at first until you're more comfortable with the system and you're learning what you need to see and where you need to get that notification from, whether you're seeing it as an in-app notification or an email. Some folks find that creating an email folder or rule to organize email messages is useful. So that's just a recommendation if you find that you like getting the email notifications, but it's also cluttering your inbox. Go ahead and create that rule to kind of sort those out, keep them out of your general inbox. And then adjust once you know what's useful. So if you're as you're gaining experience in the application, you'll get a feel for if in-app or email is more effective for you. All right, so now we want to actually log in and show the application. So I am currently in an approver user. This is our test site. You'll notice on the left that this flyout that I mentioned is blue. Production, it's black. So some users might have been involved in testing over the last few months, and they might have access to the test environment as well as production. Just make sure that you understand the difference, blue being test, black being production. And when we're actually going about our day, we want to make sure that this flyout is black. The flyout works by hovering over the different words or images. So as you can see, the options fly out. That's why we call it the flyout. Um, we have our shopping options, order options. Some folks have contracts going, accounts payable, suppliers. One thing we'll talk about with suppliers in a little bit is the supplier search, sourcing, and reporting. And again, these options might be different based off of what user roles you have. Um, I want to just talk about the orders flyout here for a second. This is where all of our approval work will live. So orders, approvals, and then we have these different options, requisitions, change requests. Those are what my user profile has access to. There might be more options, depending on what roles you have. But if we just go back to orders and search, CSUBUY works off of different types of documents. So we have requisitions. This is where we're actually saying what we need and getting approvals. Oops, getting approvals for what we need. Purchase orders, once a requisition is fully approved, it becomes a requisition. I'm sorry, once a requisition is fully approved, it becomes a purchase order. Sorry about that. Purchase orders are what gets distributed to the supplier, and ultimately what they use to fill the order or complete the service. Vouchers are essentially approvals for payment, so they get put in against invoices and are attached to the purchase order within the system. So again, different types of documents, and those are probably a key bit of understanding there. Requisitions, placing that request, purchase orders, what's sent to the supplier, and vouchers and receipts. Receipts being I saying I received this good or service. So just kind of understanding the difference between the different types of documents. What we're mostly focused on are requisitions because our role in the process is approving that order. So we're approving that requisition saying this good or service is okay. I mentioned the user profile. So in the upper right hand corner here, we have our user, and I would go to view my profile. This is how you get to see all of your profile settings. Like I said, the main thing that you have edit privileges to is your notification preferences here. Clicking on that will expand all of the different tabs that users have access to. I'm just going to go into shopping carts and requisitions. Um, some of these might be overridden because it's a test profile. Most everything should be set to defaults. None indicates we're not getting a notification at all for this particular item. All of these are email and notification, meaning we're getting the email sent out directly to us, but we're also getting the in-app notification. To make modifications to these preferences, we would go to the edit section, and anytime we want to change it, we would click the override and then select which option we want. So maybe I want prepared by cart assigned notice to be an in-app notification, and then I would go down to the bottom and save changes. And now we can see that's changed our preference. Let me go ahead and just change that back to default. Real quick overview of our homepage. We talked about the organizational message here being from the campus, our general announcements being from the system, quick links. Up here we have our search, one of our search. This search works best if we have a document number or maybe a supplier name. It can also take you into the different search engines that we'll talk about in a little bit. But this is a quick way to get to a specific item if you know the number of that document or name of the supplier. Down here we have our guided buying. These icons will take you into the various punch out and forms. For those of you placing orders, this is all discussed in the end user training. So if you are placing orders and you were not on that call earlier in the week, I believe there's some options after go live that you can attend to learn more about that. Okay, back to our deck. We'll talk about searching because we need to know how to find things if we're looking for them, right? So we can use search to locate requests and orders. Searching has a variety of preferences that you can save, and you can also change the layout of your searches. So we talked about that global search field at the top. Again, if you have a specific document or supplier that you want to go straight to, that's a great way to do it. And then from the flyout, we can also go to search and look at specific documents in groups. So again, this is just another image of that flyout going to orders, search, and then whichever document that we want. I would guess the most relevant for this group would be requisitions. But through this, you can search requisitions, purchase orders, change request, vouchers, or you can go specifically to items that are assigned to you. Um, the search engine for this that I'm going to show you is the same for each of these documents. It's just a matter of which area of the application are we searching in. Requisitions, purchase orders, change requests, vouchers, receipts, whichever one you need to look at. So this is an image of the search engine itself. Just a few things to call out here. One is quick filters or save searches. Quick filters being what CSUBUY is kind of deemed the most common filters. Number three, if we just kind of jump ahead over here, this is a list of all the available filters. So, whoops. If you don't find what you're looking for over here, it's likely in this section here. Number two is an important call out created in the last 90 days. This, on your initial login, unless you change it in your save search, which I'll talk about, but is defaulted to 90 days all the time. So if you're looking for older orders and you're not seeing them, just know that this trips people up. And you can change that to really any date range that you want to look at. And I'll show you that shortly. And then number four over here, this gear gives us options for changing our layout of columns, maybe adding or removing columns and changing the order of the display. Clicking on that gear here gives you this pop-up where we actually configure our display. So number one here shows, and there's a full list that you scroll down and see, but it shows you the available data that you can display in the columns. And number two over here, you can change that order. Now, let's say that we are constantly adding the same columns and changing the order. We just like how it looks and we're constantly going back to that same view. Number three is a little checkbox right here where we can pin columns as my defaults. So every time you log into the system and go to your search, that's what you'll find. It'll be that same layout that you've changed it to. If you have multiple searches that you like and you're always kind of going back and forth between views, you have the ability to save searches. So back on that original view, there is this button right here, Save Search. So clicking that down arrow gives you that option to save what you want, and also exports available. So if you are looking to manipulate data, maybe in Excel, you can pull that out. Save Search works as a folder directory, similar to just Windows folder directory. We have, in this example, we have no personal folders. So the first step would be to add one. We want to save our own searches under personal. And once you've added a subfolder, you would select it and then name your search and then save your search. All right, so let's look at what this actually looks like in the app. So orders, search, requisitions. We have our quick filters. We have all of our data. So here we can just see a list of pending, withdrawn, completed requisitions. We can sort if we need to sort. We can add those filters, as I mentioned. Maybe we want to know when it was last modified, and then you can add that filter. So maybe we just want to see ones that were modified in the last 7 days. We have 11 results. We have a couple different pin options. So I mentioned this one already here. This is pinning changes to the actual column layout, but maybe we want to pin our filters. So every time I log in, it's always the same filter. You have the option here to pin filters or pin columns, or you can do both. Maybe this is a search that I don't need all the time, but it's one that I like to have handy. As I said, you can save that search. Clicking Save As brings up the nickname. So maybe recent changed orders. I don't have any personal folders, so I need to create one by saying Add New, top level personal folder. Changed orders, save. So now I have this folder here that I can save this search to. Looking back at this quick filter column or area, my saved searches, now that saved search is there. So again, if we're having one view that we're always using, maybe the pins make sense. If we have multiple searches that we're switching between, would highly recommend saving those searches. If we go to save again, this additional options, and we go to manage searches, this takes us to an area of the app where we can actually, if maybe we don't need this anymore, we can delete it. Or if we want to go, if we have a list, this will take us right to it. But just for the sake of keeping this profile clean, I don't need this search. I'm going to delete it. And I also don't need this folder, so I'm going to delete that. Sarah, Carrie, Tawny, anything else you want me to cover with just the search engine?
No, I think you got it. The search engine is really powerful, and I think you guys will really like that. There's a question in the chat about, what can I see? And to McClurg loves to say that there are no secrets in CSUBUY, and basically anybody can see anything. So you can search for, I wanted to see what this department bought. You can see it. So
I would just say that the only filter that's kind of global is your BU. So you're only going to see what's for your campus. It's not the whole system. But yes,
no,
other
you
than
can't
that,
see
no
that.
secrets.
MBU is business unit. So whether you're a stateside entity or an auxiliary, whatever access you have.
What we've found it to be useful is if you forgot a year ago what you had to provide, attach, what backup documentation, it is viewable for you to be able to see. And that helps other departments too. If they want to use the same supplier, then they're like, oh, well, what did they have to provide? Then they can do it up front to make it a more expedite process. So that's one of the benefits of being able to view not only your requisitions, but requisitions for that supplier.
This is not a view that I would recommend using for your work queue. That the approval queue is different, just to kind of give that preview. This is a way to look at requisitions or whatever document you're searching in as a whole. You could drill down into ones that are specific for you and are awaiting your approval if you wanted, but this is not where you're going to work your actual approver business process from. Okay, another.
I just wanted to say too, the reporting, your campus will take a deeper dive with you in your in-person progressive trainings that you have. So make sure you're signed up for those.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Tawny. And Carrie, thank you for the segue about suppliers and talking about, what supplier might we need. We do want to go over just basics of searching for suppliers and understanding supplier profiles. The search engine, I lost my. The search engine for suppliers is the same. It's just under the supplier section of the flyout instead of the order section of the flyout. It does have a little bit of additional information in it. So again, you have your quick filters in my search right here. Number 2 and number 3 are unique to the supplier search. Number 2 shows the relationship to CSUBUY. So the system as a whole. It is important that users leave this as in network. So there's 3 options here, all, in, or out of network. In networks is a supplier that has some relationship with the CSU. Out of network is that supplier has a relationship with any of the Jagger clients. So just a little bit of lingo here. CSUBUY is built on Jagger. So you don't need to see suppliers that are out of network. You want to see ones that are in network. So it's important that you don't change that. Number 3 is active for shopping. So if it's active, it's configured to be shoppable for some campus, maybe not yours, and I'll show you how to determine that in a minute. Inactive means it exists, but it's not available for shopping. 4, quick search. So if we know the name, then we want to try to isolate our search down to a specific supplier. 5, adding filters, exactly the same functionality as what we just looked at in the last search. It's just filters that are specific to suppliers. 6, that's save as. Same exact thing. If we have a search that we're always looking at, we can save it. And 7 being that gear for column configuration. Um, Again, exact same functionality as the last search. One more thing here we want to call out, number 8, registration status. This shows what status the supplier profile is in relative to shopping. I'm going to show a supplier 360 in a second, so we'll talk about that. So when you actually go into a supplier profile, this is what you'll see. This is the default landing area. It's called the supplier 360. A couple things we want to call out. Not numbered here is that supplier registration status. So I think one of the more common questions that we get right off the bat is, how do I know if a supplier is available to shop from for my campus? What you're looking for is a registration status of approved here, that it's active for shopping here, and there's a list of active business units, and you'll see it says 6 values selected. This is a hyperlink, so when you click that, you'll get this pop-up of all the BUs that the supplier is configured for. You're looking for your campus's BU, the BU that you're trying to shop in. So the combination that you want is approved, active for shopping, and your BU being here. Additional relevant things for compliance approvers would be down here. You might be looking for insurance that was added during supplier registration. That's down here. Important to note, insurance is not a required field during supplier registration. It's not something that is validated by the system admins when they're approving a supplier profile. So there's a good chance that it won't be housed in there. But if the supplier's saying, you say, hey, I need to know what your insurance is, and the supplier's saying, well, I put it in my supplier profile, this is where it would live, right here. So let's jump back into the app real quick. So instead of going to orders search, we would go to suppliers, manage supplier, search for a supplier. Very similar interface to what we just had. Our default is in network, active for shopping. If you're looking for a certain supplier and you're not finding it, we might change it to all just to see maybe they're in here, but they're not active, right? Let's just go into one. Let's just take a peek at this. So we're approved. We're active for shopping. It's active for Bakersfield and Chico. So I'm currently in a Fresno business unit in this profile. I would not be able to shop with this supplier. I would need to complete some forms to get it available for me. Again, things that are discussed in other trainings.
Hey, Brian, have a quick, just a quick note is that
Yeah.
the supplier is one big bucket of suppliers for all of the CSU. So I just want it, so it's not individual by campus as far as, oh, I just have this supplier and, Fresno has a different supplier. It is, think of it as one big bucket of suppliers. And then the use of that supplier is by business unit. So I just wanted to, and Brian will go over like how to extend a supplier from one business unit to another. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that instead of having our own vendor file or supplier file for each campus, it's all in one bucket that we're sharing now.
So I wasn't planning on doing extensions in this presentation, but I can touch on it if you want. Was that a yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You could
Okay.
just show like there's a form that you fill out to say, hey, I want this supplier to be extended from Fresno to Chico. So that's a very easy process and quick process.
Sure.
So,
okay,
great.
I can cover
Thanks.
that. So supplier 360, there are other tabs in here with other pieces of information. So good to familiarize yourself with that. I think the main call out here would be, if you're looking for insurance, it might be there. Like I said, not required during registration. So Slim chance of it actually being in there, but savvy suppliers that are used to working with you guys might see, oh, there's an insurance tab in registration. I should just go ahead and put that in there. Normally, that's information that would be attached to the requisition if it's required. Um, okay, so let's say that in that example, and again, I apologize, this isn't in the deck, so we'll just have the recording. So if you need to reference it, it'll be in the recording. Um, if you need to extend a supplier, as in the supplier exists, it's approved, it's shoppable for one campus, but not mine. If you go to the homepage in this miscellaneous area, we have the supplier extension or reinvite form. So in this case, we are going to go into this form and we have some instructions here when to use the resend, when to use the extension. So um, we want to, again, extend the supplier to our campus. It's a completed profile, it's active for another campus. We need that profile to be made available for ours. Because as Sarah said, it's one supplier profile, one registration for the entire system, but it's only configured at the registration approval for the requesting campus, for the campus that's looking to do business with that supplier in that moment. So we're asked some questions here. First one is, are we sending a new invitation or are we extending? We are extending. We're then asked, which campus is this for? Let's pick maybe Monterey. We're then given a list of business units. The ask is to only select the business unit that you're looking to do business with. So maybe it's MBX00. We're asked, how quickly do we need this? We don't need it within the next 1 to 2 days. What's the supplier legal name? Demo. And this you're going to pull from that actual supplier profile. So I know that there's a supplier profile, BG Supplies. Supplies Plus. I guess let's do this the right way. Ah, so this is the supplier number that it's looking for right here. So when they're saying CSUBUY supplier number, they want this piece of information. What type of products or services? Will provide services or installation on campus. And anything that has a star is required. That's what they want. Go next. We'll talk about workflow, but just as a preview, all documents when they're in a state of either like pre-submission or they're submitted, you can see everywhere that that document is going to stop for approvals. So each one of these names or is a stopping point. We call it a step where it needs approval. And you can go in and you can see the people that might approve it. And then once you've answered the questions, you've got the screen check mark, you just hit submit and you are good to go. So that's the extension process. It's also covered in some of the other trainings. Okay, getting into module 2 now.
Hi.
I saw you come off mute.
I know. Because I think there's some confusion. We're talking about suppliers and the various business units, but as a compliance approver, because that's what this one is for, if you are a compliance approver, you don't have to have access to all the business units. All business units will come to you for approval. Isn't that correct? They don't have to be shifting between the various business units. That's how it is for the operational team.
So it's a good question. Let me get to the step chain slide and then we can talk about that.
Okay.
But the quick answer, just to alleviate any anxieties, a user does not have this. Maybe they're kind of aware of personas and things like that. Your approvals are routed to you based off system configuration, not changes that a user's making in their profile. So it has to do with what rules we assign you,
Right.
not anything that you're doing in your profile.
Right. You could be a compliance approver for, it depends on how your campus configured you. If you're doing the compliance approvals for your stateside business processes and your auxiliaries, you don't have to switch between personas, which just means a persona is in your profile selecting between the different business units. It will all just feed into you. It's really the requesters who are submitting the information that's going to route to you. They're the ones who have to worry about the different business units and personas. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay. Okay, so requisition approval workflow. We want to review workflow for submitted requisitions, and we want to understand the difference between manual and automated approval steps. High-level overview of an order. So we're shopping for a good or a service, and that creates a cart. So that's the first step. We're putting our items in a cart. From there, the cart is reviewed by a requester level user, and they check out. Once they check out, we go from being in a shopping cart to creating our requisition document, and that's when compliance approvers get involved. The system, CSUBUY, is going to look at everything in that requisition and decide who it's going to route to for approvals. Once it gets through everyone that needs to approve it, so it's a fully approved requisition, then the system will move into to create the purchase order. All right, workflow overview. This is an important slide for you guys. Most folks in here should be living in one of these yellow boxes. Those are our compliance reviews. The first initial reviews are fiscal. Is it okay to spend this money? Then we go into the yellow boxes. Is it okay to order this good or service? Once it gets through those two levels of approvals, then procurement will look at it. The system is deciding where those orders stop based off criteria. So I'm going to lean on IT review a lot through the rest of this. Apologize for my voice. I've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks. I'm going to lean on IT review as an example, just because it's the easiest for me to set up demos for it to route to. But all of the steps kind of work the same. It's looking at things like what type of form did the end user submit? What type of commodity code is included in the order? Some campuses might have said, we want an IT form and IT commodity code orders to route to these two users. That's maybe the most simple example. Other campuses might have said, we have 4 business units, and we want all orders from the campus business unit that are IT forms or IT commodities to go to person A. And then we want all of the auxiliary related orders for IT forms and IT commodity codes to go to person B. So some campuses opt to split this by business unit. Other campuses have kept it all together. And it really just depends on what the personnel looks like. So it really is a very campus by campus thing. When we get into the approval queue, I can show you kind of what that looks like from your perspective, how to know what you're getting. But Tawny, I saw you come off mute, so if you want to.
Yeah. This slide can be confusing for people who may not have attended all of our other trainings or webinars, but this is not every single stop that every single transaction is going to hit. These are all the possible stops. So you may not have a secondary review stop, an initial review stop. Very few campuses have those. Your campus might not have an alcohol review. It might not have a catering review. So the yellow boxes are those, like Ryan was saying, the compliance reviews, which is what this training is tailored towards. These are the possible areas where campuses had the option to configure in stops. We're not telling you what you should be reviewing when it comes to you as a compliance approver. We're just ensuring that the transaction stops with you so you have the opportunity to review. It basically takes all the outside processes that are going on today on your campuses and directs them all in an automated way to P2P. So transactions can't go through without getting your approval. So like in facilities, maybe for furniture, people had to put in a work order to get approval prior to entering a requisition or using their Pro card. Now that just happens automatically. Trying to make it sort of a one-stop shop. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I'm gonna maybe lean on essays a little bit here, but I think typically you can count on an order stopping in maybe 2 or 3 of these.
I mean, obviously IT, we're using that example. That's a very common one. And your campus may set up to have a couple people doing one single review, or you might have parallel split steps. So it's going to like somebody different for security, somebody different for accessibility. It all depends on how your campus is configured. You can ask those questions in your in-campus trainings that should already be on your calendars. If they're not, follow up with your campus project lead. I think we have a slide showing who the campus project
Yeah, it's
leads
at
are
the
at the
very
end. But what happens is it's based on when somebody is making a purchase, the way that the supplier codes that commodity, it feeds in and hits a commodity code. And your campus went through and assigned your account codes to those commodity codes. So based on what is selected, what is being purchased, those commodity codes are going to trigger these selections. It could either be a commodity code or it could be how you answered the question in a form. There's a little bit of variability there. But based on how your transaction is filled out, not your transaction, but the way that the requester is filling out the form or the punch out item, that triggers this compliance review step. So that's how it's happening.
And we've got a couple questions in the chat about insurance review. While there isn't a specific box for insurance review, there's a couple of specific commodity codes that your campus may have chosen to go to, say, your risk manager, like a drone or something security related. That was a campus decision on how those are routed. Because, an insurance review could apply to something very innocuous, depending on how that thing is going to be used on campus or what type of service it is. While there isn't a specific box for insurance, that your procurement team can also, I think Brian will go over ad hocing. So they could also take the requisition and say, oh, hey, risk manager, will you take a look at this one and give me see if this one's okay. So you can pass the transactions back as well. So I think that might answer those insurance review questions.
Yeah, it should follow a similar process that you're doing today. We're doing the same things. We should be doing the same things. It's just in a different tool. So it's different. Maybe we can just answer some of these questions live.
Yeah, I think we're good on time right now. So
Okay.
it makes sense to pause here and try to have the talk as more of a group.
So the risk management review, like Sarah was saying, it could go to EH&S depending on the commodity code. It could go to, like if it's a drone, it could go maybe to UPD. It could go. So there's different security type codes and there's different like maybe hazardous material type codes. So it really depends on how your campus was configured. So you can ask your campus project lead for that. Can purchases for business type furniture company, like let's say Walmart, as opposed to business furniture supply company? Are you answering that one, Sarah? You just clicked on it.
Yeah, I think they restated it down a little way. So can furniture purchases from a non-business company like Walmart, or do you have to go through like Tangram?
So
Yeah.
For usually, usually furniture purchases are being approved by your facilities area, and they have certain criteria that they're trying to meet, right? Like it has to be make sure that it's going to fit into a accessible area, that it has the right warranties, that it has, there's all these parameters that they're looking for. We have approved contracted suppliers that are not Walmart that we should be purchasing furniture for. So on our campus, the answer would be no, we're not purchasing Walmart furniture. But you would have to talk to your campus about your purchasing requirements.
And the other question about insurance certificates, that's been a couple questions. Yes, the suppliers can upload an insurance certificate when they register. So when they create their profile, they can actually put an insurance certificate there. They are not reviewed by the system-wide office. So the system-wide office has no idea like what this supplier is going to do. And the supplier may do different services or have, on your campus from one requisition to another. So the insurance certificate, while it can be uploaded into their profile, you can go look at it, you can go find it, but until most campuses that are already live are continuing with their current process for insurance certificate review and approval.
Yes, I would say generally this tool that we're talking about right now is not made to manage the certificate of insurance workflow.
That's correct.
So that's separate. You'll have to work out a separate process. The next question is about the furniture example, and if there's something that EH&S or RISC, if that's who approves furniture on your campus, doesn't deem appropriate, is there a way to restrict the supplier? Well, so in P2P, from the very beginning, when somebody requests a supplier, before it goes to the central supplier team, it actually goes to your procurement office. And your procurement office should be reviewing to make sure, one, that the supplier doesn't already exist in the system and we shouldn't be adding them again. But two, that we should not be adding suppliers that we already have contracts with. So we know we already have suppliers in the system that we should be purchasing our furniture from. That's just the strategy of procurement and trying to use fewer suppliers so we can leverage better prices and all of that. Granted, there's going to be exceptions all over the place, but generally we shouldn't be adding a ton of different furniture suppliers. So really it takes coordination on your campus, EH&S. If you have suppliers that you know you don't want to use, then you should be coordinating with your procurement office and saying, hey, can you please not approve X, Y, and Z supplier because of these reasons? So you may have to do a little coordination on that. So hopefully I answered that question. Can requisitions go through multiple reviews and approvals, for example, drones, research fund? Well, it's only going to go based on the commodity code for a drone. Or I don't know if that was a question or a commodity code. I can't remember how that one's triggered, but
It's both.
it's
If they
both.
say it's a drone on the goods and services form, or if it's a commodity code.
Okay. So it's going to one location. So if the one location is not enough on your campus, then that person can either use the comments feature to coordinate with everybody else, or they can use an ad hoc feature, or you can coordinate outside of the system, but it's really good for transparency to stay within P2P. So if you have other approvals that you need, you have the ad hoc feature, or you can use the comments feature. You just have to remember to check the little box next to somebody's name, and maybe we went over it, and your campus will go over it in your campus training as well.
We have comments and ad hoc on the itinerary for this.
Okay, cool. Just for clarification, how does this integrate with the current plan of bids insurance upload? So once again, this has not an insurance solution. So whatever you're doing for insurance, you're going to keep doing today. Yes, there is like a way to collect insurance on the front end. Really, that's not being reviewed, used, whatever. So insurance process is separate from this process. So whatever you're doing today, There is work being done to create a center of excellence for certificates of insurance. But I won't say that's going to be a quick solution. Anyway, I'm working on that. So for now, this is a separate process. Do purchases against a blanket PO bypass the P2P requisition and approval process, but is included in the receipt process? Nothing bypasses a requisition and approval process. I'm not quite sure I'm understanding what you're really wanting to know. All approvals are done on the front end. So if somebody's putting in a blanket order, all of those approvals are being done up front. Then with each invoice that you're going to be paying against that blanket PO, you're not getting DOA approval and all of that for every single one of those invoices because you already captured that on the front end. You're just going to be verifying, yes, this service took place, or yes, this commodity was received. And then once that verification happens, then it'll get paid. I think, Sarah, you need to complete that top one that we answered live. FYI, when question is marked as answered live, it's really hard to track. Yeah, sorry. It's hard for us to track if we don't answer it live. We can't find what the next questions are. Apologies. Can you ad hoc to multiple areas? You can. We are really trying to, with this new system, it's really important to focus on efficiency and only getting the approvals that are necessary. We're really trying to move away from 5 people needing to approve every transaction. So your campus should be configured in a way that is capturing all the approvals needed automatically. That's really what we're trying to move towards here. So if for some reason you have to have somebody else, yes, you can, but it is not recommended to be ad hocing on a regular basis. That means you're not configured properly. So,
and you can't go to multiple people at the same time. So I can ad hoc to Brian and Brian can ad hoc to Tawny, but I can't send it to Brian and Tawny. So the ad hoc is a one, I believe.
You can't create one ad hoc that has multiple people in it. You can add multiple ad hocs.
Yes.
To one person, or like one person, then another person, then another person.
Yes. The last one, yes, like I don't know when you typed that and when I was talking, maybe it was similar times, but there is a work to do a centralized solution for insurance. I'm heading up that project. I don't know, based on all the transitions going on at the chancellor's office, when or there's no answers on when that's going to be done. But I am working on it right now, working with some of the risk officers system-wide and procurement officers system-wide. We have done work. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, finding a solution and all of that. But the ideal goal is to have a couple people system-wide manage insurance for everybody and take that off of everybody's shoulders. Obviously, campuses are still going to need to be involved on some level, and there's going to be exceptions here and there. But yeah, in a perfect world, it's a central repository. Everybody is covered. There's nuances to work through with our auxiliaries, but we're working on it.
All right, Brian.
Back to it. Okay, so we've talked about how does the system route requisitions. Now we want to talk about how do we actually go in and look at them. Okay. So we want to understand how to locate the requisition in the approval queue and how do we claim it to work on it. We need to identify the status of the requisition and then actually review it. So this is an image of what the approval queue actually looks like. I will talk about it in more detail once we're actually in the system, but just quickly through the top, we have a list of all those different types of documents. And what's available, what you'll see here is based off what type of documents you're an approver on. everyone on this call should see this. You may or may not see others. From there, you'll have what we call folders, which is what the system is actually routing requisitions to. So here in this example, there's a folder blank asset profile ID for Chico. And we have one order in this folder. The order, we have a requisition number, the supplier name, if it's currently assigned to any approver, and then we also have some quick links over here to view it if we don't actually want to go into the full rec. So our first step is always going to be assigning the requisition to ourself. So there are checkboxes here in the approval queue. You check the ones you want to assign to yourself. You could check one, you could check multiple at a time. And then from there, you'd go down to the bottom where you're going to select an action and you would assign it to yourself. Assigning the document to yourself essentially checks that document out of the folder and makes you the owner of it. So if there's multiple approvers in a folder, it prevents people from working on the same document at the same time. Um, Compliance approvers don't have quite as much requisition editabilities. Really, it's just a check to see is this okay or is it not. So assigning it to yourself, it unlocks a few areas of the requisition for you to edit, but maybe not as much as some of the other users. So you'll hear about buyers being able to make some changes, but you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so after we've assigned it to ourselves and we've reviewed it, we have to make decision on what we're going to do with it. So these are our approval actions. These are our choices on what we would do with that requisition. Um, let's just go ahead and jump into this. So these are all the choices that you have. Approve the requisition, return to shared folder, place it on hold, return it to the requester, forward, reject, add the ad hoc, or potentially assign substitute approvers. One that's not listed in here that we'll also talk about is revert. It's a little bit of a different functionality, so it's not included in this section. There is a button at the top of the rec that also says assign. So remember, we want to mark ownership, so we're going to assign it to ourselves. That's our first step.
Yeah, Brian, we want to go over that just a little bit.
Okay.
So if you do not assign it to yourself, it just remains in that folder and it's available for anybody else that has access to that folder. So if you do have a team that is reviewing the IT, requisitions, and there's 3 people in there, they have access to it. But once you look at it and you say, oh, I'm going to work on that one, I assign it to myself, it takes it out of the folder for anybody else to work on. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it will once we actually get into the demo too. It'll clarify things. So our first option, and hopefully the one we're going to use the most, is approve. That says we have reviewed this order and we're happy with it, and it's okay to proceed through workflow. Return to shared folder. If it's one that we've assigned to ourselves and we're like, oh, actually, Sarah should look at this. This maybe doesn't fall under my expertise. Maybe it's Sarah, and we're both in that shared folder as approvers. I can return it to the shared folder, and that would then allow Sarah to assign it to herself to work on it. Place a request on hold. This is just changing the status of the requisition. So maybe you have to do some research for it. There's a little bit of legwork to do with the supplier. Maybe you're trying to track down insurance, something like that. I don't know, just throwing out random situations that might come up. You can place it on hold. That's a way for the requester to know, hey, I'm working on it. It's just on hold right now. Return to the requisitioner. So maybe they've submitted something and they neglected to answer a question, or you need them to tweak the request in some way. You can send it all the way back to the beginning of workflow. Just understand that when you return it, it sends it all the way back and it will require every approval that it had up until the point that you saw it. So every place that it stopped, it could potentially stop again, depending on what changes are made to the request. And so if there was 2 or 3 people that already approved it, they might need to look at it again. Forwarding a requisition. Let's say that I receive a requisition in my approval queue, and I say to myself, I shouldn't look at this, but Sarah should. That's when you would want to forward. Forward is saying, I am not approving this. Sarah is going to. When you go to forward, you're given the option to select the user that you want to forward the approval to. CSUBUY does not validate that user. It's only providing you a list of users with approval permissions. It does not know if that person is actually appropriate to approve that requisition. That note is most important for folks in fiscal approvals, but could potentially apply to compliance as well, because you wouldn't want to add, I don't know, a facilities approver to an IT request, something like that. But you could see that facilities approver in the ad hoc list, or I'm sorry, in the forward list. Reject, this outright stops that requisition. This is a hard no. The difference between a reject and a return, the return sends it back to the user for edits. If you reject it, the original requester will not be able to make edits to that document. So maybe they used the wrong form, and because they used the wrong form, it bypassed a bunch of approvals that it actually needs, and it got to you, and you're like, nope, this is wrong. They used the goods and services instead of a IT hardware, so I'm going to reject this request. And that user will then get a notification of the rejection, as well as, the comment saying you used the wrong form, resubmit with the correct form, start over.
Just remember, reject, dead forever.
Yep.
Can't bring it back. The return, they can work on it, fix things that they needed to fix, but reject, dead forever.
Ad hoc approvers, so Sarah and Tawny both alluded to this. This is where I am going to approve it. I don't want to give up my approval rights. It still needs my stamp, but I want Sarah to look at it after I do. So I am going to add her as an ad hoc approver, which then it gets my approval, and then Sarah reviews it, and she would make that determination if she's going to maybe reject or return or approve. Those same options become available to her. That's an important distinction. We get a lot of questions about this after go live. So forwarding, I am not approving it. Sarah is approving it. Ad hoc, I'm approving it, and Sarah will be inserted to approve it. Selecting an ad hoc approver is the same as when you select the forward, whereas the system does not validate that that approver is actually appropriate. It's giving you a list of everyone with approving permissions. So we're relying on our approvers to pick an appropriate individual to function in that ad hoc. But really in this, you're sending it to a specific person for a specific reason, right? So for both forward and ad hocing, I believe Tawny mentioned, if you are doing either of these regularly, we need to take a look at your workflow, because maybe there's ways that we can make it more efficient where you don't need to be doing these manual steps all the time. These should be the exception to the rule. Substitute approvers, this is if someone is out of the office, maybe they're taking a vacation or they're going on leave, you are telling the system, I want all the requisitions that would go to me to go to someone else for approval. It's the same as forward and ad hoc. When you select that person, you need to make sure it's an appropriate person. But when you do this, you're given the option to, let's go to the next slide. In the lower right, that's what the assigned substitute approver screen looks like. You're picking the person, and you're given the ability to pick the start and end date of the leave. So it'll automatically drop off, and things will route back to you when your anticipated return date happens. It's a nice little way of keeping things flowing through the system. This is important, and you want to understand how many people are in your approval folder. We, as a leadership team, have really pushed to get multiple people in each folder to function as backups for one another, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it is just one person. If you're an approver and you're the only approver on that folder, you're the only one seeing that lists of recs for approval, and you're out of the office, no one else can approve that. So that's a situation where you want to make sure you have a substitute to keep orders going through the system. All right, let's just go in the app and look at what this actually looks like. Who am I in right now? Still an approver. Okay. So the orders fly out. We have our approvals queue, our approval flyout section, and then we would go to whichever area we want to look at. So in this case, we want to look at requisitions to approve. And each one of these folders represents a specific breakdown of criteria that the system is routing off of. This is a test user. This test user is in a lot of folders. You, as a compliance approver, might be in multiple. You might only have one or two. It really depends on what your role is at your campus. What you're seeing here is IT review. So this is the name of the step. So we're getting IT related orders. Our campus is Fresno, and then Fresno has theirs broken out by a lot of different things. Most campuses don't do this. For IT review, you might only have 2 or 4 different rules depending on how your campus leadership said this is how we want to distribute the work. I'm going to go into this IT review Fresno commodity. We have 8 orders that landed in this folder due to the rules criteria. And then what we can do, as I mentioned earlier, if we start checking these boxes, we're given this option here at the bottom to assign to ourselves. So maybe I want to look at, let's just go down here, grab this one. I'm going to assign this one to myself. You can see here that it's got my username under the assign to column. If I want to take a quick look at the order, I don't want to drill all the way into it, but maybe I want to take a quick look at what the requisition is going to look like. This will open that requisition as a new window. Quick word on CSUBUY. Anytime something's opening in a new window, you want to make sure that you have a hole in your pop-up blocker for it. Otherwise, it won't open. So this is a quick view as to what the requisition looks like. You can see here that it's an IT software form. We're probably going to want to look at a lot more details though. So I'm going to close out of this. And if you click on the actual requisition number, this is going to take us into the full requisition. We have at the top our approval steps: approve next, approve, return to shared folder, place on hold, return to requisitioner, forward to reject requisition. Here is where we would add our ad hoc approver. I'll do that in a minute. I just want to finish walking through this document. Most important thing is probably the forms. So we have the top of the document is our header level information. And then the line level information contains all the details about what they want to order. So in this case, this user put in an IT software request. And if I click on this is where I'm actually going to drill into the form. So our first tab of the form is the supplier that they picked. We go over to form fields. This is all of the information that they provided to support their order. All of these forms are tailored to the needs of that specific request, and they are adaptive based off how the person completes the questions. Um, I imagine a question, we're probably about to get a lot of questions as to does this form ask this? Does this form ask that? Sarah, I believe each campus should have a breakdown of all the forms at this point. So I would redirect those questions to the campus support folks or the campus leadership for that information. I don't know if you want to speak to that or if that covers that, because I feel like anytime we start getting into forms, there's a lot of questions. Does it ask this? Does it ask that? The forms are universal, so making changes to forms is a complicated process. If you feel like there really is something that we need that's not being asked, the core team at the system level will take a look at it. But just know a lot of work has gone into these forms, and they have been standardized across the entire system. Um, each form type, so IT software, again, tailored to a software request. There might be different tabs available based on how they answer the question. And then finally, our cost details. This is going to be $1,200 for this software. Someone had a sense of humor, I guess. And to go back into our request, this little arrow up here. So that's going to take us back into our document. Anything, Sarah, that you want me to highlight before we move on to actual approval actions?
No, I just think it's important to understand that the requisition is coming to you and where it came from. So looking at the form that the end user filled out should give you a lot more information than a lot of times, as we all know, when they're putting in a description, it just says, part number 123. Well, I don't know what part number 123 is. So the form may give you more information. You may want to return that back to them and say, hey, you didn't fill this out sufficiently. Can you please let me know what it is? I don't see any attachments. So those kind of, back and forths may be necessary. But I just want everyone to know that to go into the form that was created by your end user. I have one more question, Brian. If somebody accidentally hits an ad hoc, is there a way to pull that back?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I'll talk about that next. Before I move
Okay.
on, just an important concept, and we talk about this a lot with end users during their training. One line, unless we're doing something called a punch out order, if we're completing forms to build our requisition, one form is one line. So when you get down here to the line items, if you see 2 or 3 or 4 items, that's how many lines there are. If there's 2 lines, there's 2 forms. 3 lines, 3 forms. So this order is a 1 line order with 1 form to look at. If there was 2 lines, as we scroll down, there would be more forms for you to review. So just know that 1 item, 1 form. 2 items, 2 forms. 3 items, 3 forms. On the right-hand side, I want to call this out before we add an ad hoc. This is our workflow over here. So we can see it was submitted. This is an older order. It's been sitting in UIT. Pushed it through DOA just to get it into IT review, which is where it's sitting now. This is also going to stop with accessibility, IT security, IT system. Our supplier that we picked is tagged as a foreign supplier, probably just for the purposes of demoing in UIT and doing testing. So it's going to stop at the foreign tax analysis, go through procurement review, and then assuming we have no other issues, it will ultimately go through PO. So a lot of what you're seeing here, this is a more complicated order. IT stuff can stop in more places than a lot of other things because of these extra reviews. These 3 here are dependent on how your campus set themselves up. It might be all grouped into one. It might be divided out by 3. Just an example of some of the flexibility that was given campus by campus. Um, but I think the take home here is that a lot of what you're seeing on this list is typically automated, like OFAC check, all these validations, creating PO. That's all going to happen automatically. This particular ordering is stopping at an above average amount of places because it's got that IT component to it. And it's also because it's software specifically. If it was hardware, you wouldn't see quite as much, I don't think. So ad hoc, right here, you would click add. You can pick what step it's after. You can only pick subsequent steps after your approval step, but um, let's say I'm going to look at it, and then I want Rebecca to look at it. Um, please review this order and save it. So now, when I look at IT review, there's this ad hoc step that I've added after. And when I click on it, Rebecca's been added as an approver. Okay, so the example is, oh, I thought Rebecca needed to look at it, and now she doesn't. All you need to do is go back to that same section. You can edit it, you can delete it, or if you needed to add another one, you could do that. For this example, let's just go ahead and delete it. I don't need Rebecca getting notifications about things, so we're deleting that. And our workflow has reverted, come on, scroll down, has reverted to IT review, then into accessibility.
Great.
Um,
Hey, Brian, let's look at the we had a couple questions about the form.
okay.
So the when an end user is putting using a form to enter,
Do we want to go to a blank form or do we want to drill into this one?
this one's fine. I think it's just the understanding that the form is duplicated, the questions are duplicated for line 2, and the end user goes in and changes whatever they need to on line 2. So the cost would be different. Maybe some of the questions would be answered differently. And then they do line 3, it duplicates that again, and they go in and change whatever items are needed. So if you click on the line and you have the cost details, they're going to be different for each line, and the questions should be different for each line as well, or the answers to the questions could be different for each line as well. So you have one is for I'm buying the parts, and the second one is I'm doing installation for those parts. So they would answer the questions on the form differently for line 2 and line 3. So going into the form, that blue hyperlink, that is important to do.
Yeah. And just remember there's these 3 top level fields, and then you have multiple subfields depending on which tab you're on. So here we're saying it's software. This went into the folder that I saw it in because of the commodity code. So if I go back to, um, let's go to here. I know that this folder is based off commodity because it's saying commodity. It's not going to tell me which commodity it ended up being. Like I need to drill into the order to find that. But this is your quick and dirty. Why am I seeing this? From there, you're like, okay, it landed with me because it's an IT order and it's because of the commodity. But what are they actually ordering? So you can see off this quick glance, well, what did they name their cart? How many days has it been here? Not sure what this top one is. That might be, I think that's line. Um, where was I? Here. Who the supplier is. If you click the supplier, it'll actually pull up the 360. So again, make sure your pop-up blocker is not going to stop it, but you can kind of see some of that basic information about the supplier. Um, but the majority of the information you're going to need is drilling into the requisition and then drilling into the forms. What are they requesting? Who are they requesting it from? Um, I really think that's an important takeaway here is understanding that if I want to see what they want, I need to go into this form. So from there, I'm okay with this and I'm going to approve it. Again, your actions here are approve, return to shared folder, place on hold, return to requisitioner, forward, reject. Um, Probably, I don't know, the hardest decision here might be that return versus reject. How much work is this need a complete rebuild of the order, or is it a small amount of tweaking that I need the requester to do? And just as a reminder, if I'm forwarding, ad hocing, or adding substitutes, then the system's not going to validate the appropriateness of that approver. It's only looking at, can this user approve something or not? Do they have the permission to click this button right here in the system? If I hit this approve button, it is now going to go on to that next step, and I'm taken back to my work queue. Let's go over assigning substitutes. So again, orders, approvals, and this time we're going to go to this assign substitute approvers. This is going to show me a list of all of the folders that I'm an approver on. Again, this is way more than most of you would have. It's because this is a dummy user in our test environment. But let's say I'm going to be out and I want to, I have two different campuses for whatever reason, but if I want to assign them all to the same person, I can check this top, selecting all, substitution actions, assign substitute to selected folders. So let's just go ahead and do that. Include date range, pick your person. If you don't include the date range, you can just kind of leave it. We highly recommend doing the date range so it automatically ends when you come back. So let's say maybe I'm going to be out next week. Assign. So now you can see I've got Rebecca as my substitute for this start date and this end date for all of these folders that I selected. If it needs to go to different people, you can do that by checking individually instead of checking all. And then maybe I come back early and I want to end substitute for all of my requisitions. Now it's back to coming to me. Okay, approval action, just some takeaways. While there are many possible steps in workflow, typically only a few will trigger for a given transaction. Approvers should be familiar with their approval queue and have notifications turned on for when something requires their review approval. Actions that the approver can take are approve, reject, return, place on hold, forward to another approver, or add an ad hoc. Note that most of the above actions only appear if you assign the document to yourself. We really want you guys to do that. Assign it to yourself. Okay, pull it out of that folder and make sure you're owning it. A substitute approver can be assigned for when you are away from the office. And again, just to really emphasize this, when forwarding your approval rights or assigning a substitute approver, the system will not validate that you're specifying an approver with the proper authority. Okay, revert to a previous workflow step. Everything we've talked about is either advancing an order through workflow, moving it closer to being fully approved, or sending it all the way back. There might be situations where we need to go back to an approver that it already was seen by in workflow. This is how you do that. So on that workflow layout, on the right-hand side of the requisition, so this is an image of that workflow that we looked at earlier. Number one, there's this ellipses. If you click that, you're given the option here of number 2 to revert the workflow to a previous step. After you click that, you're given the option to select where you want the order to go back to. I imagine that the example given here was maybe some changes were made to the order while you were looking at it, and now we need to have DOA look at it again for some reason. So we want to send it back to this person. We don't need to send it all the way back to the original user, but we do need to have DOA look at it again. Again, there's probably many better examples as to why you would need to do this, but this is the screenshot that we got. So selecting the DOA approver, this DOA step is going to send it back. Note that you can only revert to a step that has previously occurred. So if, as an approver, you're looking at workflow and you're saying this step didn't trigger before mine and it should have, you cannot revert back to that step. You would need to figure out, or probably get help with understanding why it didn't hit that step and what we need to do to correct that in the workflow itself. You could also ad hoc the person in after you. Like there's other creative solutions, but just know that you cannot revert to a step that didn't occur. After you click that, you'll be given a prompt to put in the reason. Why are you reverting? This will be visible in the history tab. And then you'll be, a best practice is go ahead and use the comments, which we'll talk about, to send a notification to that user. Hey, I reverted this to you. Just make sure you look at it. And comments is going to get a little more description here coming up. After you've worked your way through that process, it'll go backwards in workflow to the step that you selected. Okay. So let's just show that in action real quick. Approvals, requisitions to approve. Let's just grab, I don't want to do that one. I need that one.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to answer
Yeah.
a question real quick. If I selected approve by mistake, can I undo that?
No.
Or how do I deal with that situation? And no, you can't once you approve it. But if you're a compliance approver, you can see what's next in the workflow step. So you could see, oh, that's going to go to procurement. So I'm going to get in and put a comment to procurement. Hey, procurement, I accidentally hit approve. Can you please send this back to me? So just how Brian showed to return it to that previous workflow step, that it could come back to you for a second review. So no, you can't undo, but most of the time you can figure out how to get that thing back to review.
So we have our ellipses here. Notice how I don't have that revert option. It's because I didn't assign it to myself. So first step, always assign that to yourself so we own it. Clicking the ellipses. Do I not have permission on this one? Why do I not have permission on this one? Well, welcome to UIT. There should be the option to revert here. Let me go to a different order real quick. Hold on, guys. Sorry. Okay. So here we've got this revert to workflow to a previous step. We can pick which step we want it to go back to. These are all automated, so reverting it back to those is just going to kick it back to where it's at now, but you would select the one that you want, give your reason, and revert. The comment feature that was highlighted is not automatic, so you would need to go in and just know, hey, I want to prompt this user to look at this. So that way, mostly so things don't get held up waiting for people to see it in their queue. If you're reverting it, it's probably for a good reason. Let them know to look at it. Okay, comments. Applying a comment to a requisition, PO, or a voucher. It's all the same. You're applying a comment to the order as a whole. So it's visible from any document that you're looking at related to that order. When you go into the requisition, on the requisition page here, there's all these tabs. One is comments. or we can get to it from this ellipses up here, clicking add comment. So both take us to the same area of adding a comment. This is what the screen looks like when we've actually gone to create that comment. So we would hit this plus sign that prompts us to create the comment. Number one, this is what our comment actually is. This is our text, free type field, whatever you need to put in, whatever you're telling them, whatever the notification is. Comments don't give an in-app notification. It sends an email to the user. So you're going to want to make sure to tag. If you're trying to communicate with someone specifically, you need to make sure to tag that user. You're given a list of users that are already affiliated with the order, or you can add somebody else. You can also add files. All right, I want to demo that real quick. So let's go into orders, my approvals. So in this example, we have an order for a laptop. We're sitting in IT review. When we're looking at the document, which one did I pick? So this is an example here that I created. Maybe this section for internal notes and attachments or external notes and attachments, this is completed by the requester when they create their cart. It can also be edited by the buyer once the order gets to procurement review. But maybe for our order, we need a quote or we need some other attached document. And maybe the user didn't add their document. We need to communicate with them about adding their attachment. If we go to the comments tab, I've gone ahead and just already done this, but I created a comment here. It says, please add quote as comment to the attachment or as comment attachment. And then I went into my other end user, my other demo, and went ahead and added that quote. So to do this, there's this plus sign right here, new comment. Whatever you need to type in here. I am going to select the user that I want that comment to go to. I'm going to say Rocky because that's the original requester. And then click the check mark. Now that comment is logged in history as well as here. So if we go into the history tab, we haven't talked about this yet. This is a good source of information. Sarah was probably waiting to bring this up. Everything that we do to an order lives in history. Every change that we make is listed here as a line. So anytime we're making changes, know that it's going to live forever. Anytime we add comments, it's going to live forever. So just be aware of what we're putting into the system. Know that even if we can edit it or delete it, it's still going to be in history. And history can be seen by everyone. As I said, comments don't give you any kind of in-app notification here. So if I was to go to my email, I would see an email to Rocky Requester that says demo, and you're given the option to, do you need to respond to this comment or do you need to view this requisition? There's a hyperlink in the email that takes you right back to the document. Anything else on comments, Sarah?
No, just that comments are hugely powerful in the system. So you'll want to get away from using email. I'm going to email that requester and ask a question. Ask it in the system because it packages everything up so nicely that we can see, oh, hey, we asked a question about that. And there's how they answered it. And everything is just contained with the order. So use your comments, tag people. The comments are very powerful. History is your best friend. So you want to, if something goes sideways with the order, you can look at history and it kind of tells you what's wrong with it. Most of the time, your procurement or operational teams will see that. And then the searching that Brian went over at the beginning, how to search for your orders. So when you want to look at what have I approved, or which requisitions have I approved in the last 90 days, you can do that right under your My Approvals. So the system searchability and the comments and history are really great. So I think you guys will really like them, especially as compliance approvers. When you get something and you're like, what is this? I don't know why. What are you buying? I don't understand what this thing is. You can ask that question in a comment and get an answer from the end user, or tag somebody totally different. If the person that put in the requisitions buying a widget, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask somebody else on campus about that widget. I don't, somebody that's not involved in the order, they would get tagged. As long as they're in CSUBUY, they would get an email saying, hey, there's a comment on this requisition. So you can bring different people into the conversation if needed.
Thanks, Sarah. So that pretty much does it for my deck. I want to go through just two quick examples of maybe three. We'll see what we have time for. So I'm going to go into orders, approvals, requisitions to approve. And I'm going to go to my commodity here. Which one do I want? Okay. So I'm going to go into this order. I'm going to assign it to myself. That's our first step, right? Now I want to see what this is all about. So I'm scrolling down to the line and I can see, okay, our commodity code is IT hardware. We do have an IT hardware request form. So when we want to know the details of the order, we'll look at that. We also have an attachment in external notes going to the supplier. So important distinction here. Internal notes versus external notes. Internal stays within our system, and only other CSUBUY users can see it. External notes go to, or attachments go to the supplier. I'm going to go into our IT hardware request form, and I'm just going to look and I totally understand I'm oversimplifying IT here. I apologize, but just for the sake of demonstration. We're ordering a laptop. I might know, okay, for that laptop, we need to have that quote, which is attached. Going to go to cost details. Everything looks okay here. Sure. Go back to our homepage. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to approve and complete the step. Okay, now let's go into this one. So I know that IT hardware should be ordered on the IT hardware form, and our end users should know that too, because it's very explicitly stated in the instructions on the form. But we all know that people don't always read instructions. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to see, okay, I have another order for a laptop, but this is on a goods and services form. It came to me because at least the user, when they filled out that form, we landed on the IT hardware commodity code. So it's still routed to me for approval. But this is the wrong form. This isn't going to have the information that I need to approve this order. So in this case, I'm faced with that option. Do I want to return it to the user or do I want to reject it? In this example, I would reject it because returning it allows them to modify this form. We don't want them to use that form. We want them to start over. So I would assign it to myself. I would go into our options. I would reject requisition, rejection reason, used goods and service form. Please use IT hardware. Reject. This requisition number 4457233 now has a permanent status of rejected. The end user would not be able to go into this and edit it and resubmit it. They would need to start over with a new cart and a new requisition. Okay, I think I got one more that we can do real quick. Back to the approvals. And in this one, again, leaning on my laptop example, we have an IT hardware request, IT hardware commodity code. We see our costs, all that information. But maybe we need that quote. Maybe we need to have that attachment and we don't. There is no way for a compliance approver to add an attachment to this document through this functionality here, and the end user can't do it either without returning it to them. This is a pretty simple fix. We just need to get an attachment added to it, right? So in this example, I might go to comments, add my comment, please attach quote. I'm going to send that to Rocky, the original requester, and I'm going to complete that comment. Rocky's now going to get an email. I'm in Rocky here. Yep. Let me see if I got that email. Rocky's going to get an email to view comment, which is going to take Rocky right to that order. If I do this, it's going to screw up my... It's okay. So now I see this comment, please attach. So I'm going to create a comment. Say, done. Oops, if I can type. Okay, I should be getting the option to add an attachment here. Why am I not? Well, sorry guys, but you would have the option to add the attachment here. Again, UIT, not always the best environment, but you have the option to add the attachment and it would look exactly like that example that I showed you earlier. Let me go back to that other order. Not sure what's going on with that. So there was no attachment. Rocky added the attachment. And then when we go back to the summary, we see this is internal at this point. Now the buyer can flip that during procurement review to external if we need it to be external. And if we go to the attachments tab, anything that gets attached is also visible here. And if we needed to know any history, again, history tab, we can see that Rocky was at least able to attach to this one. Not sure what was going on with that other one, but this one we worked just fine, exactly the way I would expect it to. Okay, so we've talked about requisition review and approval, voucher review and approval. If you're involved in voucher workflow at all, it works exactly the same. You have your approval queue. Didn't really touch on that in this one because this is just compliance. shouldn't be too much involvement in that. I think the only 2 slides left to speak to are all post live and contacts. So here we have our post go live training lab schedule. So again, this was meant as an overview, as Sarah said when we first started. Over the coming weeks, there will be more opportunities to participate in training and get more exposure. I think the most relevant one for this group is week 3. Not sure what other labs folks would be scheduled for. So Sarah, I don't know if you want to speak to this.
Yeah, your campus project team should have sent you invitations to the different training sessions. They'll also have regular Zoom sessions where you could just pop in. So, oh, hey, I need to approve something before this week 3. They will have like kind of an open office hour scenario so that you can get help right away. I wanted to answer a couple questions in the chat, Brian. So other reasons to reject a requisition. That would be
before we get into Q&A, do you want me to go to that contacts tab?
Yeah, just leave that contact slide up, and that's who to contact on your specific campus.
Yeah, so CSUBUY, if you need assistance, there's quick links, question mark icons, or mouse over text. So there's lots of help available within the app. Or support resources, reach out to your local CSU campus team. And lastly, contact. So as you have questions, this is who you'd reach out to for your campus. Okay, sorry.
No problem, no problem. So rejecting a requisition would be for something that is completely, no, you can't buy that. You know, we're a Dell campus, somebody's trying to buy an Acer laptop, I don't know. Absolutely not. No, you cannot buy that. You know, it could be something, you know, all of a sudden fireworks come through to my environmental health and safety. Why are we buying fireworks, Sarah? No, I'm going to reject that requisition. They would, so stuff like that, like that it is absolutely a no-go. You can't fix this one. No, we're not going to buy that. Let's see, only add attachments to if the item is assigned to you, return might be the only option. Yeah, I don't know why Brian wasn't able to add the attachments. I think that was something with the test environment.
I know what it was. I was trying to clean up Rocky's profile and I changed his role and I removed the wrong one. So that was I can fix that and demo it real quick again if they want. But that was a role related issue that I inadvertently created.
When you withdraw an entire requisition, can you reuse the requisition or do you need to start all over?
Yes, you need to start over, but there are shortcuts to recreating the order. So if you attend any of the shopping related trainings, there's functionality called copy to cart, where you can go into an old order and copy everything in that order or specific lines in that order to your current cart. So you can use that to recreate what you had previously ordered, and you can do that from any order regardless of its status. So it is possible to go into a rejected order and pull all that back into a new cart or a withdrawn order. Obviously, we don't want people doing that for rejected orders, though, because we're rejecting it for a reason. We want them to start over. So,
why can't an approver add an attachment?
They can through comments. So you create the comment and you add that attachment into the comment, and that kind of files it into that internal attachment. That just has to do with the permission setup of the profile and what areas that we want folks to be able to edit or not.
Righty.
What else you got?
That's all I've got. All right. So no more questions. I think we've gone through our approver, compliance approver training. This recording and PowerPoint will be sent to your project teams listed here on the campus contacts sheet, and they will post it to their website or however they have been disseminating information to your campus. So please reach out to them. Make sure that your training is on your calendar for next week. We look forward to going live on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.